It is round 5 of SEO Battlezone. You love it. These guys going head to head, fighting it out on all those things that, the Twitter dumpster fire likes to talk about anyway. So, today we are talking algorithm updates. Everyone's got an opinion, and SEOs, you always want to jump and snatch and fix things and break things, and we're gonna kind of get the down and dirty opinion. So in one corner we have none other than the flying dinosaur himself, Zach Chahalis, director of SEO at iPullRank, and in the other corner, oh my god, the man's got an epithet, it is Michael the Rainmaker King. You guys were wondering for the past 4 rounds, what's it going to be? Well, he dropped it on us. Ready, gentlemen? Are you ready to dive into what you should do? Can you analyze algorithm update impacts? Round 1, Mr. Rainmaker, we're going to start with you. What do you do during an algorithm update when your site tanks? Time on the clock, go for it.
Nothing. A lot of people, when they hear algorithm update has come, they're so quick to start changing things right away. But what a lot of people don't understand is that Google's a software company and is governed by the same things of any software company. And so in the case of Google search, it's not just one team. There are numerous teams that compose the Google search team. And so when there's an algorithm update, think of it as like a release for any other software product. And that release may be composed of a variety of components from various teams. And so they roll it out, and then they may roll back pieces of it because they're not happy with how it worked. So I always tell everyone, wait at least 2 weeks before they start making any decisions. Wait until 2 weeks until you even start doing any real meaningful analysis of what's happened. Because more often than not, those dips may be temporary. And so acting too quickly, like jerking the wheel back and forth, you may end up doing something that messes up your site's performance rather than fixing it. So I say do nothing until you get enough data to indicate that's truly what happened.
There you go, Zach. We're going to turn on to you, and I'm going to add one more element. What if you are in the midst of deploying something and then Google lets you know that the algorithm update is happening? What do you do if you're actually rolling out new content and then you find out the algorithm hits? Do you stop or do you keep going?
I wouldn't stop. I mean, in theory, hopefully you're not pushing something that's extremely nefarious or poorly implemented to begin with, but that would probably be the biggest factor I would see of that having a negative impact. But it shouldn't stop you from evaluating your site or improving your site. And I think kind of tacking off Mike's point, I mean, some of these algorithm releases from Google are taking weeks to push, right? So you can't completely pause your entire business to account for something like that. You should be operating as if the improvement or the change you're going to make is going to be an improvement to your site, to your user experience. So it shouldn't have a negative impact in theory, unless you're doing something wrong, in which case you need to be rethinking a lot of things about your business strategy to begin with before you worry about pausing a site release during a algorithm push.
There you go. So basically both gentlemen say you should wait till the dust settles before you do anything. And Mike gave that kind of 2-week kind of, buffer zone, but sometimes it can be even more than that, which leads us directly to round 2. We've got this year alone, core algorithm updates, product review updates, helpful content updates. The question is, how do you actually determine whether an algorithm update negatively hit your site with all of the other factors going on out there? Mike, I'll send it to you first.
Yeah, the best way to determine it is to layer a bunch of data. So pull your crawl activity, pull your visibility scores, or however you're looking at your rankings, pull your traffic, pull search volumes related to the keywords that you are ranking well for, because typically there is seasonality with search volume. Just pull all the data that you can that's related to organic search and layer it. We actually have a tool for that, SEO Ogre. I don't know how Colt called it, but anyway, the tool is specifically for that. And typically, what we see is that there is a pattern of a big spike in crawl activity, followed by a big drop in crawl activity, and the subsequent drop in your visibility, which is a leading indicator, which then impacts your ranking, or excuse me, your traffic down the line. So look at all of those things. And again, you've got to look at them in context. You can't just be like, oh, my rankings drop, I must have gotten hit by an algorithm update. That could be just that your competitors have done more than you. So really it comes down to looking at all the data in together in order to get a better sense of what likely actually happened.
Zach?
Yeah, and actually my main point was going to be the competitive landscape that comes into things. So just to expand on that idea real quick. So, a lot of times I see, and having been in the agency side of SEO for over a dozen years at this point, the amount of sites that I've worked with that freak out after an algorithm update, hey, we started seeing fluctuations. What's going on? We're down a little bit. It's not that you were directly hit by an algorithm. It's that your competitor is doing something better now. Either they got negatively impacted by an update before and they started fixing things and looking at things the right way, and now suddenly they're doing better than you in some cases. Or, you might actually be going wrong with it and, you went downhill, but always look at what the competitors are doing. Did they suddenly go up? Did you go down? It's not just in an isolated bubble of just you, because you can't say the algorithm impacted me if you're doing the right things, but a competitor suddenly jumped ahead of you. There's other factors at play here.
That's such a good point of like the unintended consequences of an algorithm update. There was that whole discussion with the helpful content update that Google is just throwing out this idea that they were going to penalize AI content, so people would kind of self-regulate the amount of AI content they were going to produce. It seems like both of you guys might have some thoughts on that.
All right. I think with the helpful content update, it is setting the stage for maybe better evaluation in the future. But has it fixed a lot of the issues that we see in search today? No. Definitely have seen it impacting some areas more than others. I think like lyric sites for music, for example, was one that got hit. But you still continue to see like these really poorly written, obviously AI never cared about, never edited, never reviewed pieces of content showing up for things like product review phrases, right? I think we even saw it when we were doing our e-commerce webinar a couple of weeks ago. We were just seeing these crap sites ranking for, baby ideas or, baby toys or gifts. It will eventually lead to something. Google is always building, iterating, getting better, and, just continuing to move forward. But right now, that algorithm update hasn't done what people think it did, right? It's not suddenly killing off AI content and making it go away. No.
Yeah, that's not even realistic. I mean, and I'm pretty sure I made this point in our last one of these. I definitely made it in my blog post. Like, it's just so difficult to confidently say that this is generated by, a large language model, because by design, they are mimicking how people write. So I just don't think it's realistic at this stage. And even if it is something that they're able to solve, it's then, made obsolete very quickly by moving on to a new language model. So I don't think that's going to be how Google solves that. And it's frankly not what happened in these last couple of updates. I'm actually ashamed of what's happening in the echo chamber around us right now.
AI content, if you are interested, definitely please read and watch all of our amazing content all around AI content and SEO. But I want to move to round 3, which is kind of, an easy question. Again, I'm going to throw it to you guys. What should an enterprise website do in preparation for any future algorithm updates? Zach, let's start off with you on this one.
I it might be blunt, but think like actually, do some things that are good for your site. Continue to do, I hate to say best practices stuff, but continuing to improve your site, adding good content, improving your internal linking structure, cleaning up all your errors, adding structured data. Doing all these things sets the proper foundation and will prevent you, again, not doing something stupid, but will prevent you, theoretically speaking, from getting negatively impacted, specifically you, from an algorithm update. Doesn't necessarily prevent your competitor from doing better. But if you're improving your site, adding content, going after the keywords that you're talking about, and providing that good user experience, it's almost a moot point, right? Like, that's the thing, is I've been in the SEO game long enough where I'm implementing quality strategies for my clients. When you implement poor quality strategies, I've known people that, hey, I ranked #1 for this phrase, but suddenly got killed by this algorithm. Cool. Well, obviously you weren't doing something very well, or it worked momentarily, and now suddenly you got bit by it, and now you're trying to figure out how to recover from it. So there is kind of a little bit of a game that goes on there too. But as long as you're kind of doing those right things and improving, it's not something that you should be staying up all night thinking about, oh, I'm going to get bit by the next core update. You shouldn't be. Like, just do things well. I know it's simple, but
Mr. Rainmaker, what do you say to that?
I agree. Don't be dumb. Don't do dumb things. Frankly, aside from like Penguin and Panda, what algorithm update has made us dramatically change how we do things? If anything, these algorithm updates act as an opportunity for the SEO person to be like, hey, remember that thing I told you should have been doing? Why don't you do it now? So really, from my perspective, it's all about staying the course, making sure that you have strategic alignment that allows for your organization to be good at SEO. Continuing to create content of value, not just creating copycat content like most people are doing, but also thinking about this concept of information gain, like what can you add so that it can support the diversity of results? Because I suspect most of what Google is trying to do right now is give more diverse results. Especially with so much content being out there that's like, oh, I'm saying the same thing as everything else up and down this SERP. So then Google's got to be like, all right, well, how do we make this a better experience? And to that point, it's going to require more diversity. So these are all things that should just be fundamentally part of how you do SEO. And, you fundamentally should not be buying links. You fundamentally should not be making bad content. If Google makes a change that further demotes that stuff, you shouldn't have been doing it anyway. So for me, like, watching how people react to algorithms and all of that, it kind of misses the point of how you should be operating as a business. You should be making things that people actually want and promoting them and making sure that you have a technically sound website. Everything else is like, what are you even doing? So the algo updates shouldn't matter that much to you. Just, frankly, and I hate to say it, make great content. Like, that's all you really got to do.
I agree with both of you. And so what I'm going to say is my last devil's advocate bonus question for you both, which I think is interesting. Something Zach and I were talking right before this episode is, in your opinion, there are a lot of huge, massive enterprise sites with millions of pages that don't do the fundamentals well. They're awful at it, and they have this sort of brand authority. You both have worked with tons of Fortune 100, Fortune 500 organizations with awful websites. To what extent are brands immune to big brands immune to algorithm updates? I will let you start first, Rainmaker King.
I think that at a certain point, a brand does become too big to fail, because a good search quality experience would include those websites. Like, I think everyone knows that Amazon on its face is a poor website from an SEO perspective. Like, structurally, it doesn't really make sense. A lot of reasons why it's bad. But we also know it's going to be, position 1, 2, or 3 for any product related query, because not just because they have so much authority, but it's like if they weren't there, you'd be like, I need to go to DuckDuckGo or something, or Neva or something, because I expect this result. So yeah, I do think that's true. But you'll also find that reflected in their authority. So it's not like, oh, it's this conspiracy. I think this is also where entities come into play. I think this is also, Google just trying to make sure that, again, you have the best search experience possible. And, I can't remember the guy's name, Eric, whatever, former president of Google. He wrote the book and he said, the web is a cesspool, entities or brands or whatever is how you sort it out. So of course they're going to orient towards that, because again, that's how things are reflected in the real world. So yes, it's always going to be that way, because again, that's a good search experience.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I work with a wide variety of large-scale e-commerce sites, enterprise-level sites. The brand is always going to be a factor, right? It doesn't mean that you shouldn't fix the basics or up-level your site. It just means that you're probably going to be in a better spot than some mom-and-pop business that's trying to make a website down the street. I've worked with sites in the electronic space, for example. And I will say, working with that site, they got away with a lot of things that were fundamentally wrong with their site because of the brand and who they were. But then when they fixed those things that we identified during an audit, they started going up in the rankings. Now, there's kind of that floor that they may not go below unless they're doing something completely nefarious and get removed from the index for some reason. But, you're still going to have to do some of the things to beat the 800-pound gorilla in the room, for example. Like, hey, I have been able to outrank Amazon, but it's by doing more than just, hey, let's coast along with this site because we're brand X, right? You actually have to up level that. You have to add structured data. You have to fix your errors. You have to add good content. You have to add internal linking. You can't just get away with it, but it sets you off to a good start point.
It's a very interesting discussion, especially when you get to the 1, 2, and 3 rankings for those high value revenue driving head terms that are incredibly competitive. Obviously, it matters whether you're a big brand or not. And if you're not one, you're last, right? Anyway, this has been another episode, a round of SEO Battlezone with the Flying Dinosaur and the Rainmaker going at it, dropping bombs, throwing haymakers, and having a good time. Hope you enjoyed it. My name is Garrett Sussman of iPullRank. If you're interested, check out all of our past rounds and episodes and all the other great content that we got going here at iPullRank, and we will catch you for the next round. Peace.